Hello and welcome. My name is Adam Barnard, and on behalf of GateWorld.net, I'm here with Stargate Origins writer Mark Ilvedson. Mark, is that the right pronunciation of your name? I forgot to check with you beforehand.
You're actually one of the few people. Say it again.
Ilvedson.
Yeah, it's very close. It's exactly how it looks, but everyone always mispronounces it. And then because of Facebook, it gets misspelled a lot because the uppercase I looks like a lowercase L. But that's it, Mark Ilvedson.
Oh, wow. What's the heritage of that last name?
It's Danish originally, and there was another. It's been modified a bunch of times. So the only people that have that name are people in my like roughly immediate family. Like if I Google it, I know everybody that comes up.
Well, I want to go ahead and, no pun intended, start to hear about your origin story. Because I know while this is your first writing credit, or produced writing credit, you've been in the industry for a while. So can you just go ahead and walk us through your journey into the film industry and then subsequently your journey into writing?
Yeah, I started out going into writing, and then I just got waylaid along the way by paying bills, and I did a lot of art direction, but I had a lot of jobs that just paid the bill. I mean, there isn't a job that I haven't done, there isn't a non-glamorous Hollywood job that I haven't done. Let's put it that way. And then about a little over a year ago, I was doing a lot of on-set art direction, which I actually really enjoy doing, being the on-set prop person and the on-set, in charge of running the set and dealing with all the scenery. And I actually do enjoy that, but I was working on a series of like low rent made for cable movies. And I was like, these scripts are, wow, I need to go back into writing. And then I just decided to start going back into writing, and somebody suggested I go in and pitch on Origins, and I just really liked they gave us. They had a very, very rough outline of what they wanted the show to be. It was, basically a couple paragraphs, and it changed a lot from, it was always going to be Catherine. Her father was always going to get kidnapped. There was an evil Nazi. That name changed, and there originally a lot more characters on the other side. We ended up scaling back a bit, and basically, I've when you're pitching, it's a very nerve-wracking process. And what they wanted was a synopsis of an episode, and then kind of a general vision of what the show would be like. And I was working on those, and I was okay. I'm not a big synopsis writer. I find it the most challenging part of writing because it's very dry. And I just decided that I was going to launch in and write the pilot. Especially because, these were 10-minute episodes. So it wasn't like I was banging out, a 40-minute pilot.
Right.
And it just came together really quick. I reread that pilot last night, and a lot of it made it into the show, and some of the stuff that didn't, they were just logical. Originally, in my pilot, the gate was still in the desert. It was where it was in the movie.
Yeah.
And it just too crazy and cost prohibitive to shoot in the desert constantly. So we had to figure out a cheat later on where we moved it. That's where the warehouse came about.
Oh, interesting.
But there were things I really liked about the pilot because there was a little more location work. But a lot of it was there. A lot of the first beats were there. And then some of the stuff that changed. We made Bruke's arrival much more of an event in the show, which I actually really like. That's kind of how it began. And there were a series of meetings, and they liked my pilot, and then they liked my idea. So I met with a couple of producers, and then I had a meeting with Mercedes, and she and I really clicked. And it was one of those weird meetings where we got there early, and then the producer that was kind of going to shepherd the meeting was running late. And by the time she arrived, Mercedes and I were already thick in discussing things, and that was really exciting. And I felt a really good feeling after that meeting. I felt a good feeling through most of it, but I was like, oh, we got the job. And then they paired me with Justin, who I had not met. And Justin and I just really clicked. He was really fun to write with. And we both came from different backgrounds, but we both were in the world of improv comedy a bit. And he was, more successful than I was. But I had met him. We'd met briefly in passing. He actually coached an improv team I was on one Sunday afternoon when our regular coach couldn't come. So it was a weird small world moment.
Yeah, if I heard you right, you were saying with the when you were coming in and didn't get the job, yet you spec'd the first episode on your own time. So that was your contribution to try to get the job. Did I hear that correct?
That was something I went ahead and did. Yeah. And
Okay.
part of it was I was really unhappy with the way my synopsis was reading. And because, you're not supposed to have any dialogue or any of that stuff in a synopsis. And it just read really dry. And I had this real clear vision. And I was house sitting and I had a couple days and I was like, well, let's play around with it. And initially I thought I might just be doing it to get a better handle on the material and then to just not even submit it. It was kind of
Certainly.
an exercise I was doing as I was going through the process. I was pretty happy with it when I finished it, like that afternoon. It came out really fast, and that doesn't always happen in writing, but that I had a very clear beginning of the episode, and a lot of that is in there. The idea of taking the pieces from the movie. Then we cut to Catherine and Beale at the gate, except in the original pilot, they're out on location.
Okay.
And then the main way that it was different is that when Langford interrupts them, the telegram, he doesn't say that his partner's disappeared. He said his partner's coming back. And then the next scene was Catherine and Langford arguing about the partner came back with a bunch of Nazis. And I missed losing that scene because I liked that aspect of, but once we had them arriving, which I actually like that also, where they just show up, but I miss, in the writing process, I always miss that scene because that fight played better because I love that scene. And the fight scene with her and the father was always a tricky scene. And in the pilot, I like that. That's the one thing I like in the pilot better because and there also was that whole period of time when everybody in Europe was kind of being blasé about the Nazis and not thinking it was going to be a real problem.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
we had Langford like going, oh, your generation's always thinking the worst, or whatever. And it was a fun bit. But then when we changed the pilot, what actually happened is my pilot ended up becoming episodes 1 and 2. We
Okay.
expanded it.
How many pages
And
was your pilot? Are you able
I
to
think it was
say?
12 pages,
Okay. Okay.
if I remember right.
And for Origins, the show that we see, are those scripts also about 10 pages for each episode
They
that's
were
distributed?
typically we really tried to keep them to 10 to 11 pages.
Okay.
The last couple episodes ran longer, and then I think, if I remember right, when we split, because we ended up, we took the pilot, split it in half, and added a lot of scenes to it, kind of. The original pilot ended with Catherine. The original pilot ended with Catherine showing up with her hands tied. It was a lot, like just a lot more happened. So that episode became 2 episodes, because we expanded it.
Right. So with when you were still in the pitching stage and you hadn't gotten the job and you were working on your spec episode, how much was that inspired by what you know of Stargate? Were you a fan beforehand? Had you seen the movies or the shows?
I'd seen the TV shows bits and pieces, and I had really liked the movie a lot. And then I knew that the time frame of this thing was taking place within the movie. It's almost as if like it's an era in the movie that gets cut out. Is almost how I always thought about it. Because it opens with Catherine, and then we jump way ahead, and this is like an area we could have jumped to that we don't. So we were very much trying to keep in continuity with the film in that way. And I love that period of time. I love the idea of, it being so close to the Indiana Jones era, which is historically accurate. The Nazis were, gathering relics. And I just thought that was a real neat window to explore. And that really, really, really did get me excited. And that was, I just had a real clear idea of how I would want, the pieces to come together. And at one point in the original treatment they had, she went to the British outpost to get help, and then she had never met Beale before, and I thought that it was such in my mind, if somebody showed up and was like, this portal opened and blah, 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 I would be like, you're simply crazy. I'm not going to believe you. So I wanted them to already have a connection where they knew each other. So he had a reason to kind of be invested. And then that was part of the reason she doesn't tell him what's going on. She just gets them there and they open the gate. Because I thought that's exactly how I'd handle it. This is so insane, you have to just see it to believe it.
So you were in the position, or from a writing standpoint, you were very much interested in just jumping straight in the story, it sounds like. Is it something where you wanted to, you felt the sooner that you got into the gate or the sooner that ignite the inciting incident happened, you'd just be able to get to the meat of the adventure? So is that fair to say, or were you?
Yeah, I thought the story should begin with, you see a recap of who Catherine is, and then we see her with the gate, and then you get into it pretty quick. I thought it was all, I felt like we should jump into the story pretty quick, especially because there was a lot that, the rough outline changed quite a bit, but there was, but bare bones of the skeleton was always there, kind of.
Certainly.
And then there was stuff that got changed. Like, Kasuf's father was in the script at one point, or no, it was in the outline, and then it was also in the script, and then characters changed quite a bit, which was a lot of fun, actually, during the process. Wasif was originally going to be British and named Owens, and Elsa was originally the same character, but male, basically, a male propagandist. And then during the process, Mercedes was like, are there any characters we could open up? How can we make these people different? It's a lot of guys. And I was like, yeah, that's true. Because I was just following the original source material. And then I think it was her or Justin's idea to have Serpette be a woman. It was originally going to be one of the Anubis. I think it was Anubis in the original treatment.
Oh, really?
And then, yeah. And then we're like, oh, Kiernan, there were people saying, oh, we run into problems with having him da-da-da. So it was like, oh, we'll create a new character. And then I came up with making Elsa. I thought that was a really neat idea. And then it was a combination of when Owens was always going to be a closeted gay guy from the beginning. We talked about trying to put that in because I thought it was an interesting idea. In the movie, there's a scene where there's like a big party sequence and all the guys are kind of all hooking up with, female aliens that they don't speak the same language with. And I felt like, we've seen that so often. What spin can we put on it? And then I also thought it would be interesting to represent that aspect of, humanity, especially because there's a lot of interesting, like in the movie, especially there's some curious homoeroticism
in the original movie,
in the original film. Yeah. So we were interested in exploring that.
How much did you get to watch the original film to really hone it and marry to the Origins script? Because I found what was interesting is Origins was really an adventure that's very much tied to the Emmerich movie and not the TV show. And I like that because when you look at the time period, it makes the most sense.
Yeah, that was really, I was very immersed in the movie. Long before I got the job, I ordered the Blu-ray and I watched it a ton because there was a ton of, a lot of good behind the scenes details. And that was, the language, there's a lot of features that were very helpful. We didn't want to go against the series, but we were very much, trying to keep it make sense within the film. And part of that is there's some continuity things in the series that were hard to wrestle with. Like, the gate is different in the show.
Sure, yeah.
And it didn't really make a lot of sense for that's the one thing I've noticed we've gotten feedback on sometimes. I'm like, well, I felt because of where we were, and I think other people felt this too, but in my mind, we had to match the movie because it takes place within the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, right.
So we just went that way with the gate. And so I was very much keeping with continuity of the film.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that because, I had gotten the press screener for Origins before it came out, and I watched all 10, was blessed enough to watch all 10 together, And some of the stuff with the gate, I was a little confused about. I was thinking it doesn't really match with the show. But then, of course, right after I finished Origins, I went to watch the movie, and I guess, I think a lot of Stargate fans, 95% of the Stargate they've seen is the TV show, because there's 200 plus episodes of SG-1, but there's only one original movie. So the image that's
Right.
seared into your head and the sounds that are seared into your head are from the show. But like you said, if you look at the continuity of where Origins fits in and what it needs to match with visually and tonally, it's the movie. And I like that because it almost felt like what some big franchises are doing, like with Force Awakens, where it retells the spirit of the movie, of the original movie, but with different characters. Like I very much felt like Origins had that kind of spirit of the original Stargate movie. People from Earth go through the gate, they meet a complex hierarchy of villains, they have to figure it out, and also what they find will affect Earth. So it's I just thought it was cool because Origins is kind of structured like a feature film, and it feels a bit like a spiritual retelling of the movie.
Yeah, no, the original movie was very important to both, because it was also Catherine's story, and, Catherine comes and goes in the series, and I know she's not in a ton.
It's a select few, yeah. It's a very select few.
So we were very conscious of I wanted it to be kind of its own thing. I mean, in my mind, in a sense, what we're doing was kind of like a Rogue One thing.
Oh, okay, interesting.
It's the same. It's like characters that have to disappear. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And we were really trying to match stuff.
Sure. Like the stone in the cave in Origins, when Catherine breaks the bottom part of the stone which conceals the gate address. In the movie, I think it was Daniel Jackson. He goes in that cave. He can't find the rest of the stone, and he has to dig it up. So it's an absolute direct connection. Like, thanks to Origins, we now know why that stone was sabotaged or why that part of the gate address was buried.
Yeah, that was an idea Mercedes brought in that I thought was really, really exciting, and it was we struggled with trying to make it fit in a way. I think I actually really liked the way that plays out, but I remember at one point it was problematic because it was like another set and it was another thing, and it was like, then there was, would Catherine break it off? And we were like, I think at one point Beale did it, and I always wanted it to be Catherine, and I feel like at one point there was an executive who was like, but would Catherine break this precious artifact? And I'm like, she's trying to save her. Like, I think Mercedes and I were like, yes, she's justified in this one case.
Right. And there's a moment in the middle of the story where she very much realizes, kind of has an epiphany of how dangerous the Nazis and Aset and Ra would be to Earth. So I think you know what I'm talking about. It's at the tent city.
Yeah,
and she kind of gets in mission mode where she's like, I have to rescue my father, but I also have to stop the villains from starting to breach these two worlds together.
Right. And I was really happy when we were able to do, I love that tunnel set. I just thought it was a really neat idea, and it was a real bit of irony that, like, she's the one who breaks it.
On the topic of Catherine, I wanted to ask, who was the individual or the team that came up, or was it you that came up with the ending where Catherine, under hypnosis of Aset, is designated to return to Earth and lead a team back through the gate when they're more prepared? I mean, that is very much... It explains, in some extent, why Catherine is so driven and why she ends up being a matriarch of the Stargate program. Whose idea was that to put in the end, and how did that fare throughout the development process?
That happened later. That was discussed a bit during the process, and then I think some of that was either done on set, or it may have even been done in post.
Like ADR, like adding the dialogue, so it wasn't shot.
Because if I remember right, I think when that's talked about, it's in. I think those are lines of Aset's, and I think I can't remember if she's on camera when she says them or not. That was not in the original final script. The final script changed quite a bit.
Okay.
That had been an idea, but I think maybe that was a Mercedes idea. We talked about it, and then I think maybe somebody else liked it, and then it ended up in there. It's an interesting idea that it ties things up in a neat way.
Yeah, it kind of gives a context to how Catherine becomes who she is and drives her more on her mission, I think.
I think part of it was a neat button on Alset's story where she gets revenge. That was definitely something that unfortunately I cannot take much credit for that plot line.
Oh, okay. It definitely works. It's a small moment, so I understand how that maybe wasn't a priority during development. I just think I guess it's those moments that really sell how much this is Stargate because it pays so much homage to the characters and the greater narrative of the Stargate and the Stargate program. So that was kind of a cool moment. As the story's coming in for a landing, you get that smile because you see even with Kasuf how he's tasked, you will lead your people, and Catherine.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest complaints, it was very difficult to not jump in. People were saying, "This doesn't fit with canon. How can Catherine go through the gate?" And that scene is the moment where both the narrative and the plot, and also the tone of it, really come together to give it that final Stargate climax.
We always knew she was going to have to lose her memory, and it was just we were really boxed in, and there was different ways they talked about it happening. I think in the original script, Catherine and her father were supposed to fall from a great height and almost die, and then they were brought back to life. And it was in the healing process that they lost their memory.
Oh,
and then
interesting.
There was just the fall from great heights thing was really hard to do, and it just seemed really. It was kind of convenient that they both lost their memory. It was such a challenge having both of them. Like it was a challenge that we were really boxed in, and at one point we even talked about like having somebody hit the. This wasn't me. I was always like, I think we just have to do a memory wipe because they can do it. It makes sense, and that's why it happens to both people. It's not. We can't have them hit their head and magically lose their memory. Like they did in screwball comedies, which is fun. But if it had just been Catherine, maybe. Like if only Catherine had to lose her memory, I could see her hitting her head or something. But with both of them, I thought no, it needs to be that their mind is wiped.
Hear part 2 of our interview with Stargate Origins writer Mark Ilvedson next time on GateWorld.net.